We're going to switch back to English because now we're going to talk to Professor Lang Tong, who is doing research work for the National Science Foundation regarding the impact of the electric cars in the auto industry and actually in society in general. How are you, Professor?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you very much. We just had in the last segment of the show another study of like top 10 list of the most efficient cars for 2015, and of the list, every car is either electric or hybrid. One is with a liquid gas engine, and the other one is a regular gas engine. So that really fits perfectly with this segment, because now it seems like the industry is changing a little bit towards that, even though the numbers are low. But anyway, the electric cars are becoming more and more relevant, right? And so you're doing a study about how this impact the consumers' decisions and how this is working, right?
Yes. Well, so this is sponsored by the National Science Foundation as a basic science project. We're really looking at some of the challenging engineering as well as the economic issues when the electric vehicle is reintroduced to the public.
Yeah.
As we know, the electric vehicle was popular at the turn of 20th century, and at that time, the alternatives were steam engine vehicles and gasoline vehicles. Electric vehicle was by far the easiest to drive and the most pleasant to drive, whereas the gasoline vehicles at the time was hard to operate and
almost dangerous, right?
Yes, and unpleasant exhaust.
Yeah.
And what brought the demise of electric vehicle at the time was several factors. Most importantly, I think Henry Ford's Model T that brought the cost of gasoline car down to about 1/3 of that electric vehicle.
Yeah.
And also the massive infrastructure investment on interstate highways that make the range a significant factor, which is still today. And also the oil boom that made gasoline more available. So all these brought the demise of the electric vehicle. And the reasons that led to the fall of electric vehicle at that time are pretty much still there today. The cost of electric vehicle is still considerably higher. It is still a limited driving range and the lack of convenient and fast charging facilities.
Yeah. So,
So
that simple conspiracy theory that a lot of people have about like the old companies just like shutting down the electric car industry and all that. I mean, it's much more complex than that. There are many factors that affect the success of such technology, right?
Absolutely. I think basic engineering problems are still there. But the growth of EV is quite telling. So there are about 400 cars were sold in 2010, and the sale grew to 17,000 in 2011, to 53,000 in 2012, to 96,000 in 2013. So by now there are over 300,000 electric vehicles on the road. The public charging stations, however, grew far slower. I think it was about 400 in 2010. It's about 9,000 today. So what we are studying are really some of the unique problems in these early stage of product introduction. For electric vehicle, there is what the economists call the cross-network effect. The growth of electric vehicle heavily depends on the growth of EV charging services and vice versa. So the inconvenience of charging, the time it takes to charge, and the scarcity of public charging facility is a major inhibitor of the EV growth. On the other hand, the low level of EV stock in the market limits the investment of EV charging stations. So this is what we call the chicken-egg problem.
Yeah, but are we at a tipping point of that problem? Because, I mean, obviously all the car manufacturers are going into this technology. The technology itself for the battery, which is the most important element of the car because of the range and the recharging times and all those kind of things, is changing fast. Now we have Tesla cars that run almost 250 miles per charge. GM is coming up with a small car that is going to be $30,000 cars with a range of 200 miles. So are we already, do you think we're like that tipping point where things are going to start like moving even faster in the next few years?
Well, I don't know. I'm an engineer, so I don't really can't really forecast what's going to happen. But I think we do study from our empirical data analysis. We find that there's a unique aspects of the EV and EV charging.
Yeah.
So the interactions between EV sales and EV charging services is asymmetrical. So what we found is that 10% increase of EV charging stations probably will bring about 10% increase of EV sales, whereas 10% EV sales bring probably about 5.8% of increase of charging stations. So in terms of the policy implications, so this suggests that at the early stage of product adoption, it is perhaps more effective and to incentivize investment in charging infrastructures, because that is one of the main concerns of people buying electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So there indeed, there are some interesting news I just saw yesterday. PG&E, a utility company in California, has announced that it will build 25,000 charging stations in the next 5 years. Bear in mind that right now there are only about 9,000 charging stations today in the whole country.
Yeah.
So, I think such investment coupled with the improvement of battery technologies will undoubtedly have a positive impact on the growth of EV.
Yeah, and it seems that the car companies are also like getting into this, because recently Volkswagen and BMW announced that they're going to be combining efforts to create these charging stations. So I think everything is moving towards that. And that's why I was asking you, not only in terms of the actual engineering of the cars and all that, but like how the whole industry from inside the auto industry and like anything that supports it, like the utility companies and all that, it's moving into that new phase where things are going to be much easier for everybody, right?
Yes, but I think that the issues actually are quite complex. I think what makes electric vehicle charging different from refilling of gasoline cars is that it usually takes a significantly longer time to charge. So the solution of charging problem cannot be the on-demand refill model that we're accustomed to.
Yeah.
It needs to be somewhat a different model. If you think about it, the majority of the time the car is actually parked somewhere, in your garage, in your work and shop and so forth. So the key to eliminating the so-called range anxiety is to have some kind of everywhere charging model that makes charging port widely available everywhere. So to this end, I think in China, for example, there is a mandate on something like 20% of parking spots in new parking facilities must be EV ready.
Yeah.
So this is partly an infrastructure problem, partly energy distribution problem, and partly an environmental problem.
So are you familiar with the project that Tesla is trying out in California, where they have stations where you pull into your car and you actually change the battery, like instead of charging it, like it goes underneath, a mechanism goes underneath and change the battery, and you go off like in less than a minute, less than you will take to refill the car. That's other solution, I guess, but very expensive.
Ironically, that was exactly the solution that in the last century thought about this. So I think there are various ways of doing that. And I think solving the charging problem is what are the really ways to reduce this anxiety. I think the model cannot be the same as refilling a car, and at least that's what I think. I think there is another interesting hidden environmental issue. Although EV is considered a technology that helps reduce the gasoline, the greenhouse emission, the issue actually is quite complex. Some of the recent studies suggest that if we charge a large number of EVs using the current generation mix and take into account the process of making EVs, especially the batteries, the environmental impact may be considerably worse than not having EV at all.
Wow.
So you see the headlines recently declare EV is far dirtier than gasoline cars.
Yeah, we're talking with Professor Langton. He's a researcher at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. And I'm sorry we're running out of time. Like we have like 1 minute left. So, Professor, can you let us know where can our audience look for more of your work on this study for the National Science Foundation, please?
I think on National Science Foundation there is a link that talk about our work, and our work, of course, is still.
I think it's nsf.gov, right? I think that's where you can find it. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Professor Lang. And I wish I had more time to talk about it because it's a fascinating topic, and I'm sure there's going to be more news and everything. So maybe we'll talk soon again and see what's going on in the next few months and years, okay?
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
All right.